Buy yourself a gun. What? Gun? Oh. What? Like a handgun. For personal protection. If somebody tries to mug you. What? What if your government tries to throw you in a can? What? You're gonna want a shotgun. Oh. What? An automatic rifle. And a lot of ammo. Gun? Yeah, gun.
We're all set to riot. Buy a gun. Before you lose your Second Amendment. Buy a gun. They'll burn you out like a Waco. They'll stick your ass in a camp. Jackbooted cops in riot gear, gonna kick your ass and laugh. The revolution is on its way. Better lock and load your AK. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. We're all set to riot. Buy a gun. Before you lose your Second Amendment. Buy a gun. They gave your money to the banksters. They stole your pension funds. It's time that we took to the streets. It's time we had our turn. A revolution is on its way, and the founding fathers would say, buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. Get a riot in the streets. Revolution's not clean and neat. You got a riot in the streets. Revolution's not clean and neat. You gotta drag them through the streets.
It is Tuesday. It's Primer Time on UCY.TV. My name is Michael.
And I'm Nick.
Hey, Nick, how's your leg?
It's getting better. It's a little bit of a slow heal, but it's getting better than it was.
Not dropping any glasses or anything on it, are you?
Well, funny you should mention that.
Yeah, really. Not all that funny. So, other than having a bad leg, you get to play anything with guns this week?
Actually, I helped a coworker make a snap purchase on a 8mm Mauser that got him for a fairly good price, and he'll have plenty of money left over to do some repairs and buy some ammo.
That's a good deal. Now, when you say 8mm, there's a couple different 8mm cartridges. You're referring to the old German wartime round. Is that correct?
Right.
7.92?
Yeah. The German World War II variant, not the .323 caliber, not the .318. So that is it's the original. Well, I mean, it's the original for World War II. The 8mm Mauser was originally developed in 1898. And it's been used, and it's called a Mauser round, but it's not. It was actually developed by the German Arms Control Board that made all the standard infantry weapons. But the Americans decided to go ahead and just call it Mauser because everything that was firing it was coming out of a Mauser action. So, but the guy that I was working with, we have a bulletin board system where I work. And there was a guy that just happened to even work just a few desks over from me. And he put a listing out for an original German 98K, so it's a Carabiner 98, and he wanted 125 for it. And my buddy saw the ad and came up to me because he knows that I was pretty knowledgeable about those, and said, "Hey, would you mind going out there with me and talking to this guy?" And we took a couple minutes, and I asked some questions, and I kind of didn't get the answer that I was hoping to hear from the guy. And even went out so far as to look at the rifle in the guy's car, and the guy thought I was the one that was interested, and I just kind of said, "Yep, okay, thanks, appreciate looking at it, thanks for your time," and was getting ready to walk away. And the guy's like, "Well, do you want to put an offer in on it?" And I just kind of looked at him, and I'm like, "Well, what are you asking for it?" And he said, "Oh, I was asking for 125," and I was like, "Well, honestly, I wouldn't give you 50. 50 would be about my limit to give you on this one." And the guy kind of thought for a second. And he's like, "Oh, I mean, if you got 50, I'll take it." And I was like, "Well, what? I'll tell you what. I'll be right back in just a minute." And I told my buddy, I'm like, "Hey, give the guy $50, and you're going to have something that you can do a little bit with in terms of buying a new barrel, but you're going to get a $350 gun for $50."
Well, and in our previous conversation off air, we were discussing this rifle, and this rifle comes with some issues. Is that correct? Like it's got some patterning problems.
Right. Yeah. When I asked the guy the questions about, what from your perspective, as the owner, what is your main concern with this firearm? And he's like, well, it's having some consistency in the pattern that I'm getting when I shoot it. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm thinking you just one of two problems. You're either going to have some problems with the barrel, or you're going to have some problems with the sights and not being able to maintain the same sight picture and such. Or maybe it was his eyes. I don't know.
It's a stock rifle, is that correct? It's not been sporterized or
no. This is straight up as it would come from Mauser Oberndorf. This is the
just
regular.
With a lot more wear. Just
right.
With a lot more.
Yeah, this is a 1938 vintage rifle. This has got it's got the wartime, wood stock with the bolt takedown in the back end of the butt, and yeah, it shows its age. It's from 1938, and I actually took a look down the barrel, and it wasn't pretty.
Okay, now when you say it's not pretty, what are some of the things you look for in a barrel when you're looking down it?
Okay, number one, what I'm looking for is consistency of the rifling. I'm gonna take a look, and if I have a flashlight with me or something, I'll shine a flashlight down the barrel and just see if I can identify any kind of pitting or corrosion that's really taken the luster out of the inside of the bore. Looking to make sure that the rifling inside the barrel is it's deep enough and it's concentric. Everything in there is uniform and not one side of the rifling is more worn than the other. And certainly looking to see that it actually has rifling. You don't need a smooth bore 8mm. Nobody's going to shoot that.
Well, now you had said that this rifle had a problem at about 100 yards is what the problem was, and the problem was keyholing. Right.
So what the previous owner was saying when I asked him, I said, what's your biggest problem that you're seeing? And he says, well, when I've taken it to the range and shot it at paper targets at 100 meters, the bullets are keyholing. And for our listeners out there that don't know what keyholing is, that's when the bullet tumbles instead of spins in flight. So you're going to get on paper the profile of the entry is going to be kind of like an oblong shape of a bullet instead of the circular shape as it would fly normally in flight. So that's a concern, and I think that when I took a look at the inside of the barrel, some of the rifling was off, and there was there's quite a bit of corrosion on the inside. So obviously that barrel, I wouldn't say the barrel is shot out. I think that what it is the barrel was not properly maintained, and the guy was probably shooting some corrosive ammo, mostly probably surplus stuff, either coming from Serbia or Turkey or heck, maybe even Egypt or Iran, who knows. And so that stuff, takes its time, and you figure that from 1938, until here in 2014, that's a lot of time to be either abused or not properly maintained.
That is 100% accurate, which unfortunately this rifle is not. But even that being said, you've got the issue that this is actually at 100 yards. It is able to hit the paper target.
Oh, certainly. I mean, and that's...
Which is, in an emergency situation, that is more than acceptable. And to be honest with you, if the bullet is keyholing at that and you get hit with the bullet sideways, it probably has a little more disbursement of energy in the target than if it was going to just tunnel on through.
Yeah, if I'm going to be getting hit with something, first off, I'd rather not get hit with it, but secondly, I would rather it just pass through and not dump all of its energy into me. Whereas something
that is keyholing would have a tendency to have a massive immediate dump of all energy, turning all meat into jelly.
Yeah, that would be the hydrostatic shock effect.
Yeah, we would call that sausage on the non-human targets.
Yeah. So what you call is a little bit of muscle damage when you shoot that deer with it. Yeah, that's what it
Right.
does.
It would be as TN Outdoors 9 on YouTube, and if anybody's out there, go ahead and check out his channel. He's got a really good channel, does reviews of ammunition. I enjoy him. He calls that the temporary stretch cavity.
Yeah. So, finaling out with this guy, I helped my buddy. He got this rifle for $50. He'll probably have to spend at least
firing rifle, a rifle that goes bang and is able to put in another bullet through its action. Is that correct?
Right. Exactly. It's fully functional. It's not pretty, but if he goes and spends another $150 to $100 on a different barrel, he's got the option to either change the caliber, as long as it's within those short actions. And I told him, I said, there's no sense in doing that. I mean, you can go on eBay, you can go on all different kinds of different auction sites, and you can
I'm
find
sure they're
something.
sold by Brownells. They're probably sold by Natchez Shooter Supply. I'm definitely sure that they're in stock at numerous gun parts.
Oh, exactly.
And for anybody out there, if you got something you can't find a part for, numerous. If they don't have it, good luck. Good luck. It's sitting in a warehouse in Bulgaria.
Yeah. So I mean, with any exception, I think for $200, he's going to have a rifle that he can sell for another $200 on top of that and make profit.
Oh, absolutely. And if nothing else, he's also got a very capable rifle that's suitable for use for hunting, and it's not necessarily the best for home defense unless you've got like a decent sized piece of property, but it's also got that intimidation factor. I mean, that's a big rifle.
Oh, yeah.
Even the 98K. The shorter rifle, is that correct?
Well, the K98K, when you see it written on paper, the first K is for carabiner, and then the 98 is the Model 98 rifle, and then the K at the end is for Kurz, and Kurz in German means short.
Short.
So, there you go.
So it's still a long rifle.
This is just the K98. This is
just a plain old stock infantryman's rifle from the old black and white times.
There you go. Yeah,
he got a good deal at $50. I mean, that's definitely a shooter, and the surplus ammo is out there. It's not as plentiful as it was in the 90s or in the 80s, but it's out there. And I mean, and it's out there in bulk.
Oh yeah, and like I said, we've talked about the different online venues to where you can find ammo in metric calibers, and I told him about that, and I'm like, hey, look, this is nothing for you to be worried about. I said ammo is available. Ammo still made in the United States for this caliber.
Classic Firearms seems to have a goodly supply of it on a regular basis.
Yeah, well, not only that. I'm fortunate enough that in our town, we have some big box stores, and we have some local gun shops that actually stock that caliber, and they do it with the Remington. Now, you're not going to get the 196 mil spec ammo that the Germans produced, but you'll get a fairly respectable 170 grain bullet that will make a deer.
Well, probably we'll have a ballistic tip or something that aids in expansion and that coveted energy dump as well. It's not necessarily going to have a metal punching ability.
Well, right, and like I said, you're going to pay a little bit more for those with the ballistic tip, but the ones that are being sold in the stores are the things that I've seen have been Remington, just a full metal jacket for taking down paper.
Okay.
So, and that's 170 grain versus 196, and you feel the difference in the recoil.
Well, that's 26 grains. That's nearly the weight of some of those little hyper velocity 22 Magnums.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think most of the 223 ammos are 55 grains.
Right, and I think the 22 Magnums range between about 46 and 30 grains. They've got some that are really, really light. I think it's the Hornady V-Max in 22 Magnum right now, which also has a little ballistic tip on it. I think that's 30 grains moving at 2250.
That's moving.
That's singing, man. That's right up there because the 5.56 or 223 comes in right about what 2,600 feet per second.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So. That's in the ballpark, and now it's half the weight, but that's a straight shooting round. I got a little bit of range time today. I'm kind of lucky. friend of mine called me, and he hadn't been out in a while, and he had a couple of new purchases. And actually, I kind of looked at one of them with a skeptical eye just because of its price. And I'll tell you what, I got to shoot it a little bit, and I'd like to give a little range report.
Yeah, go ahead. Let's hear about it.
Mossberg Model 702 Plinkster in 22 long rifle, synthetic stock. It does not look like an AR-15 or anything tactical like that. It's just a plain open sights rifle. Has a 10-round straight magazine. The rounds sit in the magazine a little bit staggered. I found 10 rounds to be a little bit tough to get into it. Looking at the action, it's almost identical to a Marlin Model 70 action. And then doing a little bit of research later on today, I found out that there's spring problems and things. Marlin springs from a Model 60 or a Model 70 will work in that bolt and in that action.
Okay.
Does have a bolt hold open feature, which is pretty nice. You just got to push the little charging handle in when the bolt is rearward, and it'll lock it open. Fired a good range of ammunition. It's fires some of the lower end stuff. The CCI Blazer, which is 40 grain round nose lead. I think it moves at about 1,100 feet per second, maybe 1050, 1070, somewhere in there. And no jams. And I've had bad luck with that in previous Prescott. And actually no jams with anything we used. And we used CCI Stingers and CCI Mini Mags. Stingers and Mini Mags to me are the gold standard. If it does not work with CCI Stingers or Mini Mags, there's a problem with the weapon. But this worked with everything that we put through it, no hiccups, and relatively good accuracy. I was able to keep everything within the red center of the target at about 35 yards, offhand, just standing there. And I mean, I'm not Annie Oakley by any means.
Right. Well, you know, that's a good deal. And
it's actually not made by Mossberg. It's imported by Mossberg. It's made by a Brazilian company, CBC, which is Companhia Brasilia Cartuchos, which is Brazilian cartridge company. And a product that people may be more familiar with is the MagTech line of ammo. That's actually made in Brazil. There's several different MagTechs they make. They don't make a lot of plinking ammo. They make more specialty defensive ammo, and they also make the Cowboy line of ammo.
Yeah, I was going to say that's where I've seen that before.
Right, and it's not cheap ammunition. And I'll tell you what, as opposed to the rifle was value priced. I see them new right now from the high end at Cabela's for $200. Actually, it was $202 at Cabela's. To the local big box store in my area has them for $139. Used are even far greater savings. I saw them on Gunbroker anywhere between $36 and $100. I mean, and these are bids that have met the minimum. Met the minimum.
Yeah, so the reserve is
the reserve bid, yes, and so it seemed to be a value priced rifle. It did the job very well. I mean, it'd be probably a good candidate for a truck gun. You know, I wouldn't leave the magazine in it, but you know, that'd be kind of something nice to have. It's not going to break the bank, and well, it's not necessarily the most sturdy rifle. I think it would do well. It had a kind of a paint finish on it. Wasn't parkerizing, and it wasn't a bluing. It was more like a paint.
Wow.
And it was thick. It was the paint application was even. It didn't appear to have overspray that went into the action and interfered with the operation by any means. It just wasn't super fancy. It wasn't like a Beretta royal blue finish or anything like that.
Well, I mean that could have been a rebluing. You know, somebody could have had.
Well, I don't think so. I don't think at the price that this rifle comes in, I don't believe that anybody put the cost of rebluing or any sort of cosmetic work to it, because a Cerakote job costs anywhere between $100 and $250.
Right.
Depending on who's doing it, and so I mean that's a little bit pricey. and it actually looked like the factory. It was in good shape. Some of the big negatives I found about the rifle was, well, it was light and pleasant to carry. It was very kind of front heavy because there was no weight in the stock. The stock is completely hollow, which that's easily remedied. To stuff it full of ammo.
Yeah. Sure
You probably, if you were to pack it in, like say, put 22 in a plastic bag and shove it in there, I'd say you could easily put 300 rounds in it.
Yeah.
Probably more. I would say that you could, if with some judicious packing, you may be even able to get, a whole brick in the butt.
Oh.
Which, that'd be kind of a handy thing. The magazines don't appear to be readily available online, although the magazine for the Mossberg 715T, which the T stands for tactical, of course, and it sort of resembles a poorly drawn AR-15. It's got nothing in common with the AR-15. It's just got fancy plastic on it.
Yeah.
Those magazines work, and it gives it a different profile and 25 rounds. I did not try any of those. I stuck with a single 10-round magazine, but I've seen reports today people saying they've used them. Overall, I mean, for the price that my friend paid for it, it was pretty nice. I would say it's a definite leader in the price saving category.
Well,
it's really a budget gun, and it's not only a budget gun for target practice, but a 22 rifle I think, would be far more valuable for home defense than, say, your buddy's 8mm Mauser.
Oh, certainly. I mean, I think there's very, very few people that are going to be capable enough to wield a 26-inch barrel or 28-inch barrel on a full-size centerfire rifle, rather than being able to have 25 rounds, 25 rounds in a Half Moon magazine with the the Marlin or the whatever the 1022. I think
right.
that's a no-brainer.
Well, you also got your 26-inch barrel versus an 18-inch barrel.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, if you're talking home defense, you better have a heck of a hallway.
Right. And I would be surprised if this rifle weighed 5 pounds.
Yeah,
it was completely light.
And then that's the other consideration too, because these older World War II vintage rifles, they had heavier wood stocks because they had to take a lot of that recoil.
That Mauser would weigh in around 11 pounds, 12 pounds.
Yeah, loaded. Loaded with an optic. Yeah, you're getting up there.
Yeah, this rifle was far less than 5 pounds. There was no comparison between that and like a bag of sugar.
Yeah.
It did have an 18-inch barrel, and you could mount optic on it if you want. This one model didn't have it. It just had regular open sights, a slider adjustable rear, not really adjustable for windage, just adjustable for height.
Yeah,
and just a plain front blade, not even a red dot or anything at the tip. It was just
no fiber optics.
It's a very plain, simple, plain Jane rifle, and coming in at sub 150 new at the big box store. Well, you can't beat that.
Well, not only that, simplicity sells, and that's what is easier to maintain. So you got no problems for me on that.
Got to shoot a couple other items today as well. He also had a Taurus Tracker 6-shot revolver in 22 Magnum, and I'll have to say I was less than pleased with the operation of that. It went bang every time. There was one light primer strike on 22 Magnum.
So and pop but no kick, huh?
No, actually, no. There was a dent on the primer. I'm not going to say it wasn't a deep dent. It wasn't enough to ignite the priming material that sits in the rim.
Okay.
But
so was the round not properly seated inside the chamber, you think?
Well, it was seated. I mean, it sits in the cylinders. If it wasn't seated, the cylinder wouldn't rotate.
Right.
So it was seated correctly. There was just one light primer strike, and the sights. Well, they needed a lot of adjustment, and even at its ultimate adjustment, where it could not be adjusted any further, it was still repeating the same problem. It wasn't moving the problem in an opposite direction. It was just reducing the magnitude of the problem. And
that's not good.
Yeah, it's almost one of those problems that you're going to have to take a grinder to the front sight sort of deals, which I don't recommend doing unless you've got skill.
Yeah, and certainly you don't want to do that if you haven't done it before. I mean, that's not something that you want to experiment with.
It had a tendency to point low and to the right. Even at 10 yards on a target, it was low and to the right. And it took a bit of playing with it to be where you were somewhat near your target. It was not a target pistol, but then again, it was not designed to be a target pistol. It is the Taurus Pathfinder, which indicates that it's kind of a lightweight pistol for...
And the common complaints that I've heard with a lot of the Taurus firearms is that they've got some consistency problems.
It does seem to be. Now, at the same time, there are some Taurus firearms that are straight kick ass. They do them right, and unfortunately, it's in my view, it's a very limited number for the vast expanse of items that Taurus has to offer. They've got a revolver in almost every caliber. They've got a pistol in almost every caliber of every material possible, combinations of materials. They have a see-through revolver. It's, they've got one of everything. But I do think that Taurus's best products would be their copy of the Beretta 92. They call theirs the PT 92. It's not an exact copy, but they're very similar in appearance and in function. Parts do not swap between them, but they're very close. And they're a copy of the J-frame Smith & Wesson revolvers in 38, I should say. I don't believe Taurus has mastered the art of stuffing a 357 into a tiny frame.
Yeah. Well, there's been quite a few different manufacturers that have tried to do that. We talk about the Glocks that have built the 45s on the 9mm frames, and they've had problems with that. So doesn't
let me correct you on that. Glocks 45s and their 10mm are built on a different frame than their 9mm, their 357 SIG, and their 40 caliber.
Oh, okay.
Those share the same 9mm frame. The 10mm and the 45 carry another frame.
Oh, was it the 40 cal that shared?
The 40 cal is the Kaboom.
Okay. There you go. I knew it was one of those.
And but that happens. I'm just not a fan of the 40 cal. I did see a little news report today that said that the 9mm is chosen by the FBI as their current load, and they are using a 147 grain standard pressure Spear Gold Dot G2, which is just like a Spear Gold Dot that has an elastomeric plug in the tip. It's not necessarily a ballistic tip because it does not extend above the shoulders of the bullet.
Right.
And so it's just a flat nose with the plug in, and 147 grains. It's not plus P, it's standard pressure. This has knockdown power just shy of the 93% that the 357 Magnum has on the Fackler box.
Okay. Yeah, it's funny that you brought that up about the FBI going to 9mm. The Army is now considering going to 40 caliber to replace the 9mm.
That would be a great, big, huge mistake.
When have you ever known the military and the Department of Defense to make good decisions, huh?
That is, the only thing that could make that worse is if they decide that they're going to issue everybody a high point in 40 caliber.
Yeah, well, basically the Army's Maneuver Center of Excellence, which is very, very technical speak for the Fort Benning School for wayward youth. They have basically that's where they train all the infantry, they train airborne, and they train the armor soldiers that used to be trained up at Fort Knox. They train tankers now. But there's going to be a multi-company competition to submit bids to phase out the 9mm and go with a new caliber. But the competition is actually going to evaluate 3 rounds. They're going to evaluate the 357 SIG, the 40, and the 45 ACP.
I have a feeling that the 357 SIG will win the competition, but it would not be chosen.
Yeah, I mean, the deal.
So there is no 9mm round.
Not going to be involved in the competition now.
See, that's wrong, because they should actually probably say, okay, let's use a 135 grain or a 147 grain 9mm rather than the 125 NATO grain that you used, which is still bigger than the 115 grain box of $9 9mm at Walmart that everybody gets off the shelf thinking that that's the greatest stuff in the world. That stuff is for punching papers and knocking cans over.
Right. Well, I think that one of the big problems that the Army is gonna see going forward is that whoever's running the test, and the Armaments Board has had problems in terms of small arms testing. Whenever they've gone and issued a field test, they will change the rules as the competition goes along, and it's almost like that they've got a preconceived winner, and it's just for show when they've done it.
Well, that's very similar to how Beretta came into the contract to have the 9mm. As I recall, SIG had the superior pistol in all the tests, but the Air Force bases needed to go into Italy.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. You got to take a look at what is being used at the conventional Army level, like your average everyday soldier, versus what is being used in the special operations community. And you'll see that there's quite a difference. The regular conventional Army was using the M9 Beretta, and the special operations guys went to what was called the M11, which was that SIG. And
right.
They were still firing 9mm, but when you take a look at it from the carbine,
well, the SIG is a complete different animal than the Beretta. Even though they're both double action pistols, the SIG has a closed slide. It's got a different method of operation. It's a much smaller pistol.
Yeah.
I believe the SIG is a little bit lighter, well, a good deal lighter than the Beretta. The Beretta's a large pistol.
Right.
It's a size, intimidating. It's not a pistol that you can shove in your pants and walk around unless you're wearing a hockey jersey or a hoodie or something like that.
Right, and you can even go back as far as when the Army was going to request a change to the 5.56 for NATO. We were taking a look at a different setup than the Colt M4, and I think the HK416 was leading in every category. And then the Army said, well, we realize that this Colt M4 has had failures at much higher incidence rates and much earlier in the barrel life. But, we're going to go with that.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So, what can you do, right?
Well, was it Alan Shepard who was asked what his fear about his very first rocket flight was that what he was sitting on was made by the lowest bidding contractor.
Yeah, that's just about everything we have.
So perhaps you're going to get some of those Mossberg Plinksters issued to you guys.
Well, aren't those the ones that are the same action as the Hala Axioms? So that's one of the other things that I wanted to bring up is, we talk about a lot of the different manufacturers of firearms, and what a lot of people don't know is that when you have, we'll take a company called Browning. You may have heard of them.
I've heard of them before.
Yeah. So FN Arms de Guerre Herstal, which is now just FN Herstal in Belgium, is the parent company that owns Browning. That company makes some great firearms, and then when the ones are actually made in Belgium. But a lot of the firearms made under the Browning mark in the United States are actually manufactured at the Miroku factory in Japan. And the Miroku factory makes shotguns. They make a lot of the Browning lines when it comes to the A bolts, the T bolts, the X bolts, which is some of the newer models from 2008. I think is when they brought out the first one, or maybe 2007. You can definitely tell a difference in the quality of the manufacturing. I think we talked about that Browning X bolt that I had to actually get the whole stock replaced because the wood stock cracked while I had it sitting in a safe while I was in one of my expenses paid trips to a Muslim country, and I was pretty disappointed with the fact that the Browning factory service center in Europe would not pay to repair the stock. They came up with some story about how they detected that the weapon had been rough handled and abused, and I think that for a company such as Browning to not stand behind the product, whether it was the company or just the service center, I thought that was just the mark of a poorly made rifle, and I will not buy another Browning as long as I live.
That's a shame because I happen to have a particular affinity for Browning high powers.
But I think that goes to the same point: is that where was that Browning high power made? It wasn't. Wasn't made in Japan.
I happen to like the Browning high powers that are old. I can't afford a new one, considering a new one is about $1,150.
Right.
MSRP, which means it's probably about $900, $950 new at a shop. I happen to like the older ones. They come in cheaper, and to be honest with you, they have neater stamps on them.
Yeah,
and it's made a different level of quality. My favorite high power that I've got is a Brazilian. Actually, I'm sorry, it's a Argentinian. It's a Buenos Aires police contract, and it's stamped 1961. And yeah, that's made in Belgium.
Yep. And so, like I said, a lot of people don't know that. They may think that, hey, this is a American company. It's got to be made in the States. Whatever happened to the post 64 Winchesters, right?
Yeah, those turned Japanese.
Yeah. So anytime you see a Winchester being offered for sale online, the first thing that goes after it says pre-64 action.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that it was made in the United States.
Exactly.
In the lever action rifle market right now, it seems to be a toss up between Marlin and Rossi.
Right.
Rossi is all over the place, and you can find a lever action Rossi in 357, 44 Magnum, 30, 45 Long Colt. You can find those anywhere no more than $450 now for a blued one. If you want one that's stainless, it's going to cost you a little bit more. I don't even think it's real stainless. I think it's like their alloy, whatever their special alloy is, because all these manufacturers have their own alloy. Right. Beretta, they call theirs Inox. Browning calls theirs electroless nickel.
Right.
So,
yeah, everybody's got their own, brand proprietary, trademarked name. So,
but then in the other lever action rifles, you're looking at the Marlins, and those are coming in at about $700, $800, $650 to $800, and they don't make one in stainless. They're all blued, and the quality on those appears to be, in reports, that they appear to be sketchy. But I don't know if that's just nitpicking or if it's somebody who's just unhappy that he paid $800 for a rifle that's not perfect.
Well, it should have been guaranteed with sub MOA accuracy, and it would have been fine.
Yeah, because it's a lever action, right? And then we should put some rails on it.
Oh,
yeah. A foregrip. It needs a foregrip.
What is it? The angled foregrip?
It needs an angled foregrip and a flashlight, and then some of those sights that are canted at 45 degrees that you can put them on the side.
Yeah, those are the ghetto sights for the AR-15 crowd.
I saw somebody. He's one of these. I don't know if you call him. He's not tactical, but he's the biggest male Barbie fan that I know.
Yeah,
and he's got a pair of these. They're very expensive. They're Diamond Hill machinery, and they're metal flip-up sights, but they're canted at 45 degrees, and he puts them on the rail on the side.
Yeah, I think you mean Diamond Head.
Yeah, Diamond Head.
Yeah,
that's what it's, Diamond Head. And no, yeah, it's, I don't know.
I don't. First off, for anybody that ever shoots an AR-15 should know that the only reason you should ever shoot your rifle at a 45-degree angle is if you are wearing a chemical protective mask. That is the only reason you should ever fire one of those. Well,
I think to not use the correct sighting angle and sighting plane you're just asking for non-hits.
Yeah, yeah, and not only that, add to the fact that a lot of people don't realize that if you're going to be shooting at night, you should be using the larger rear sight aperture. just throwing that out there for folks.
Well, that's why they've got a red dot laser that costs them $39 at Kmart.
Yeah, that's true. It's all about what your disposable income that you have left after, paying for everything else.
That's my problem with them. That's totally my problem with those things.
Yeah. But, I mean, you hear a lot of people talk about, hey, guns were so much simpler 20, 30 years ago. Yeah, but you know what? We've also had a lot of good things come out in the last 20, 30 years. You were talking about lever rifles. Lever rifle ammunition has really come a long way in terms of accuracy and reliability.
Hornady's lever revolution is truly a wonderful bullet in a lever action rifle. It's not too hot in a pistol, but I'll tell you what, it works well in a lever action rifle.
Right.
Because it's got enough barrel to burn up all the powder. And boy, that thing hits like a semi truck.
Oh yeah, you put that into a feral pig, that thing's going down.
I can't say that I put one into a feral pig, but I have put it into a 5-gallon bucket of water, an old paint bucket full of water, and that was spectacular.
That was a loud boom, I bet.
It was a large splash. It was. There was turbulence in the water, and the exit hole after a punch through the 5 gallons was pretty impressive.
Oh, that's good.
So, yeah, I've got no problem with using the Hornady lever revolution in 357 Magnum. I think that's some pretty good stuff. Hey, let's hit it before I forget. Let's go over the 4 rules again, safety, real quick.
Well, let's go for it. So, rule number 1 is. Always make sure that you visually inspect the action to make sure that it's free and clear of ammunition. Drop your magazine before you pull back a slide, before you cock the action. Just make sure that you inspect it, and that way the ammunition is out of the chamber.
That's right. Every weapon is loaded until you verify. Second rule is please keep the weapon pointed in a safe direction at all times. Don't point it at anything you don't wish for it to destroy.
That's right.
That's pretty simple.
Yeah, you can't get much simpler than that, and that leads right into the third rule, which is always know what is beyond your target and be aware of what is obstacles in your way, whether you've got something that's capable of reflecting or generating a ricochet. Know what your target is and know what's beyond it.
That's right. Don't just set your paper target up on a piece of drywall and think it's going to stop it, because it's not.
That's right. And that brings us to rule number 4, Michael.
Nick, I think it's the most important rule, and it's the most fun to say, but it's also the most important rule. Is, ladies and gentlemen, please keep your booger hook off the bang switch until you are ready to discharge that weapon. Keep your finger outside the trigger guard, pointed along the barrel. Grip only the grip, but keep that finger off the trigger until you are ready to discharge. No accidental discharges. Every one of them is negligent. So
that's right, and I think that
let's be safe.
A lot of people are probably starting to take that to heart. I haven't heard a story in the last week of a gun just going off.
Oh, that's very nice. That's very nice. Unfortunately, I have, and I'm not going to dignify it with any sort of time, because it was just plain pure jackassery among high-strung teens. Really is all it was.
That is the high-risk group right there.
Right, it is, and it's because they are jackasses. Oh. And I'm sorry, the problem kind of falls to the parent at that point.
Yeah.
But whatever, let's not go down that road.
Yeah. Well, so have you getting a chance to take a look at anything that's for sale in your local area? Are you starting to see anything change in the winds, or?
I am starting to see a lack of 12-gauge shells at the stores. Normally, we are chock full of 12-gauge shells of every variety, and right now we've got a little bit of of a shortage of them, but it is the middle of bird season.
I was going to say, are you guys looking at ducks and dove, or are you looking at turkeys?
Ducks and dove, turkeys. If it flies, it dies.
Yeah, that's quickly leading into the if it's brown, it's down season.
Yeah, and that's coming right up. So there's going to be a big old rush on, the 270, the 243, the 308, the 30-06. So plan accordingly. There's not a lot of 22 in my area right now. Again, that seems to come in waves, and then it's boom, it's gone. Like as soon as it shows up.
Yeah, it's the same group of old guys.
Well, no, now it's kind of everybody. Now it's not as bad as it was, but now it's like shooters are actually getting it instead of I haven't seen a whole lot of reselling except that one scumbag Beat 4 out of Houston. Yeah, I'm talking about you, buddy. You're a scumbag. He is. He's a scumbag. He works at the big box retailer and he buys it before it hits the shelf.
Yeah,
he's then he sells it online so he's a scumbag. I got no problem saying you're a scumbag. Beat 4 out of Houston. Beat 4 out of Houston on TexasGunTrader.com. You are a scumbag.
Yeah, you know what I've started to see is
there's plenty of 9mm, plenty of 45, plenty of 40 caliber. Haven't seen a whole lot of 380. Well, like mass quantities of 380. I mean, there's 5-10 boxes on the shelf. But there's no caseloads of 380, but there are caseloads of all the other ones sitting around.
Well, see, I would figure that you guys would have probably your 270s, your 243s. Maybe you probably should have 30-06 on the shelf. But
we've got plenty of that because it hasn't hit the season yet.
Yeah. Well, what I would think is that you're probably going to be missing out on sooner rather than later is 308 and 308 Winchester. A lot of foreign ammunition magazines, they're making these and they're shipping them into the States. Like we talked about the Brazilian manufacturers. I think that as a lot of people go on, they start to see the value of foregoing the 30-06 and going in favor of the 308. And the reason
30-06 is just too expensive and it's too big and honestly, all those big game are gone.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that people are starting to look at. Hunters always have that argument of, hey, the deer just not being, seen in the same ways that they were 10, 20 years ago. And I think that people are starting to realize that. And that's why you hear people talking about, I used a 2250 in Texas or,
I used a 220 Swift.
Yeah. You speed kills just as much as mass.
I'll tell you what. Well, I don't know because a Geo Metro doing 70 doesn't have quite the same impact that let's say a Chevy 3500 doing 50 does.
Yeah, but if you're not wearing a seatbelt, it's going to do you just the same.
I won't be driving either of those. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
mainly because the Chevy costs too much.
Yeah. Well, I think that probably. What people started seeing is, I think in my area, the 223 and the 5.56, those are actually starting to show up in quantity. Walmart has the 440 round ammo cans.
That's Wolf. That's Wolf ammo, which is now on the ban list.
The one I saw was Federal.
Oh, okay.
So
Federal probably want 50 cents a round for that 440 round box.
Yeah, it was not cheap. I think 440 rounds was something like $179.
Oh, that's under the 50-cent mark there. You're getting into about 40 cents a round right there.
Yeah, fairly close enough for it to not make a difference when I think about buying it or not. But I mean, it's surprising to me that it's actually in quantity on the shelf, and I did not see a limit. Posted to it.
Since I'm kind of new to the 5.56 game, I'm kind of looking at how I stock, and I believe I'm going to stock enough to fill magazines twice, and that's it.
Okay.
I'm not going to sit on 10,000 rounds of 5.56. It's just too much to move, too much to carry, and too much of an investment at this point. So I think I'll probably keep, maybe. I'll keep the magazines loaded because that's something we can discuss maybe next week. The idea that you can't keep magazines loaded for forever.
Right.
I totally disagree with that.
I think that everybody has their opinions on whether it's safe to do or not. But yeah, that's a good topic for later.
Opinions don't count. It's science, so we'll get into that later. But I just don't think that, like, for my personal stock, I think I'm going to be able to keep enough to reload all the magazines 3 times each, and that's about it. And I don't have just 1 or 2 magazines, so I mean, it's still a goodly investment, but it's not going to be the 10,000 rounds, the 7.62 by 39 kind of a scene again.
Well, and that's the other thing too, is that I think that you got to make a call whether it's you're going to go in and do the GI steel mags, or whether you're going to go in and invest some and do the polymer mags. That's also a price consideration.
I would say that the price between like newer metal mags versus polymer mags is negligible. It's 50, 60 cents a difference between a metal mag and a poly mag. The surplus mags, I'm almost staying away from them just because there's a plethora of new magazines out there.
Right, and
why
that's the thing.
Why inherit a military problem?
Yeah, well, and not only that, like I said, you don't know if that thing's been ever maintained. You don't know if it's ever been broken down, having the springs.
And I don't know the current follower color scheme by heart. Like, because I mean, you guys change them all the time. A little design difference, or manufacturing difference, or something, and hell, man, there goes 400 million of them things.
Well, and the other side of it too is just hey, what test was done and conducted to determine whether or not it was actually a necessary fix? What was the percentage of actual failures that caused this to be a necessary change?
This necessitated change due to the fact that there needed to be jobs in that Congress district.
Hey, well, at least that would be a congressman that's actually working,
Yeah, really. No kidding. That's why it destroys me when people rant on Obama like he's the Antichrist or something. Go ahead and rant about Obama and pull him out, Yeah, we get Joe Biden, and then we still got 535 other criminals to deal with. You know, I mean, the problem don't get fixed just because the menu at Bob's Big Boy doesn't change just because you knock down the statue.
Or run off with it if you live in Los Angeles.
Nah, that's a big old boy he's a big old boy to hijack. You better have an El Camino or something along those lines.
Something with the trailer.
Something with a large back end. That'd work.
Well, that would mean some people have their wives, but we'll leave that for later.
Ouch!
Yeah, I tell you what, it's funny to me to hear, folks that I, work around. We've got some folks who fancy themselves to be, small-time armorers or gunsmiths, and just to hear them talk, it's like, you know what, your terminology is just not accurate. It makes me cringe to hear a guy who claims to have been through an armorer's course, and he still calls the magazine a clip when he's talking about a M4 series rifle. Just like nails on a chalkboard to me.
Clip thing is disturbing to me. I've almost learned to push it out of my mind. And that's only in search of a good deal. But I will tell you that the minute that somebody says clip, my bid on the item drops by like 15%.
Oh, certainly.
Just because that means the guy's really not totally familiar with what he's got.
I mean, unless he's talking to me about an M1 Garand and he says clip, yeah, I'm not giving that guy any respect whatsoever.
Right. I'm not impressed with that either. Your Taurus 24/7 and 40 cal does not have 4 clips.
Yeah,
4 magazines and four kind of crappy magazines, to be honest with you. But
well, I mean that's the other thing. We talked about either taking advantage of somebody or getting a market value for their firearm. I think that's where I draw the line.
I think it comes down to education, man. It's just like anything else. You have to educate yourself and become familiar with what you have and what you're attempting to purchase or what you're attempting to sell. if you just say, okay, yeah, give me $200 for it, sure, I'll give you $200 for that, that 3-screw 4-inch Blackhawk in 357. Hell yeah. Yeah, I'll give you $200 for that.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
and that's the thing, Do you even undersell them a little bit on that just so you have money left over for ammo, or or what?
Well, ammo's not cheap anymore. So if you can save a couple of bucks and buy the ammo, I say go for it. But I mean, like, buy within your heart, buy within your moral compass. But also do your research, educate yourself, and be aware of what is a good deal and what isn't a good deal. Because I'll tell you what, if you've got the right and the responsibility to own a firearm, you should know what it's worth, what it's going for, and you should have educated yourself. Just like you educate yourself about the backfield of the Chicago Bears, you should know exactly what this item in your hand that has serious consequences, what it is and what it's worth. What are you going to get out of it?
Oh yeah, certainly. And then not only that, if you're going to end up being unintelligent on it, what should you expect to get back from the next buyback program?
Yeah, exactly. Don't trade your high point in for less than $40 in Walmart gift cards. It's worth at least that much.
Yeah, and chances are you're going to find somebody standing just in front of the cops offering to buy it for you at fair market value anyways.
Yeah. Are they doing any kind of gun buybacks in your area? They don't do them here.
I haven't heard about one in my area, but then again, we've got other problems in my area, and I think that because there's a large university nearby, just even looking on my state gun trader, there's hardly anything for sale, and if I do see something come up for sale, it's it's gone in a day,
or it's overpriced.
Yeah.
In your situation, it looks like you're kind of like stuck buying new, unless you're willing to make a significant drive.
Well, and that's the thing. I think we have some local, gun stores where they have some inventory. There is a significant presence of pawnbrokers in the area. So that's one of the things that, if you don't get a chance to go out and buy from a big box, take a look and see what's available at your pawnbroker.
I'll tell you what, the pawnbrokers in my area are not the place to buy a deal.
Yeah.
They're really not. They cost within 5% of what the price is new, and some of them are 20% more than the price is new for a used weapon. And I just can't shop there. I can't shop at those.
Yeah, we like I said, we tend to have a little bit more of a highbrow pawn market, so typically they take a little bit more care into to marketing those firearms, and that means cleaning them up, getting them ready for resale. So,
oh yeah, no, they wouldn't actually clean them up. If it came into a pawn shop here, most likely it would get looked at, and the axe would be open, and it might get dry fired a couple of times, and then it goes right on a shelf.
Oh well, you can't win them all, right?
That just seems to be the culture and the way the item is viewed. It's not. It's such a common item here that maybe it's not viewed with as much reverence as it is on the East Coast. Here, it's more like a tool. It's like it's just another hammer.
Right. Yeah, there's plenty of those out there.
Actually, had to use also shot a little 410 Derringer that I have today, and I actually had to use the butt of that to extract empties from that Taurus Pathfinder. The 22 mags seemed to swell up and get stuck in that cylinder a little bit, so I had to tap on the little nose of the cylinder with the butt of that 410 double, which it works at like 15 feet. It sprays a target with an entire shot shell full of dust, but yeah. it's arm's length.
Yeah. Well, Michael, it sounds like we got to get out of here. I want to thank Jules and UCY.TV, and I'm going to leave it to you.
Thank you, Nick. Thanks for being on, man. Thank you, UCY.TV. Thanks for this platform. Everybody pay attention. Prepper Chicks Live After Dark is coming up next. You don't want to miss it. We'll be back Tuesday. We will discuss some science and stuff. Nick, thanks a lot. I appreciate you being here.
What patriots do. By God, by God.